our planet's wilderness is fast disappearing. So are the animals that inhabit it, on land and in the sea. David Ireland has spent much of his life in the oceans around Australia, studying and recording the behaviour of its creatures, particularly the predators. He believes that an understanding of the instincts they display, their aggression and territorial ferocity, the urge for dominance and power, can teach us a great deal about ourselves as human beings, and even perhaps be the key to our survival. And theirs. But to do this, to observe and learn while there is still time, requires courage and commitment. It is this commitment which has brought David Ireland far inland from the sea to confront and learn from the most fearsome predator still in existence, the saltwater crocodile of the Australian interior.
I was more a shark man. I was far happier in the ocean. I knew very little about the crocodile and its environment, except that it was a much more developed and sophisticated animal, as dangerous on the land as it is in the water.
This was a challenge to David Ireland, and before he invaded the crocodile's territory, he knew he had to learn as much about the creature as possible, to arm himself, as it were, with all available information. Crocodile cultures of Thailand. The world of totemism, its paintings and carvings. The legends of men who were half crocodile and crocodiles who were half men. Perhaps, in the end, his survival might depend on this ancient protective talisman. $2,000 million years ago, a vast plateau, more than 3 times the size of England, came into being. The West Australian Kimberley, the land of the Never Never. Great storms gouged out a mighty river called by the Aborigines Kununurra, from whose depths great reptilian dinosaurs, the saurians, hauled themselves ashore to populate the surrounding wilderness. During the Great Ice Age, many of the world's creatures perished. The saurians, however, survived, successfully adapting and evolving with the changing environment. It is the nature of this adaptation and evolution that fascinates David Ireland, and the reason why he has come to the Kimberley to confront the present-day descendants of these prehistoric master survivors, the crocodile.
In she comes. Okay, that's good.
As soon as our base camp was established, the three of us, Mark, my brother Michael and myself, set out to see what we could find. It didn't take long to make contact.
Nice and slow. Bring him in up current, up current. Little beauty, look at him go. Little freshie. He's sitting there, look at him. Oh, you little beauty.
At this stage, Ireland had no idea how easy or difficult it would be to get the pictures he wanted. Initially, there appeared to be no great problem in filming the creatures while warming their cold blood in the tropical sun, or cruising idly across the path of the expedition's fragile boat. Deceptively easy, in fact. Ireland had to keep reminding himself to stay alert, that millions of years of evolution had fine-tuned these creatures, that their sense of sight, hearing and smell was second to none, and that they could register the slightest movement or vibration in the river's muddy waters or on its banks. The graceful flight of the jabiroos struck a chord in David Ireland's memory.
The jabiru to me would have to be a distant cousin to the manta ray, with such wonderfully powerful wings.
David Ireland believed that an intimate knowledge of the crocodile's habits could provide us with a link back to our own origins, and an understanding of the instincts that drove and sometimes dominated us. To gain this kind of knowledge, however, Ireland had to get much closer to the reptile, to enter its domain and confront it face to face. That confrontation may be closer than he thinks.
It might be stuck in the mud, or it might be something wrong with it. It looks like crocs have been at it. Let's take it right in, we'll have a closer look. I'd say it's broken its neck, for sure. Looks like it's broken its neck. Just be a bit careful, because it could be here. I'd say for sure, look at this. Well, there's a kill for you. Wow, look at this. Look at the power of this, Mark. Good grief. Well, that's definitely been killed by a croc. It's done a good number on it. You can see where he's grabbed his nose, probably when he's having a drink. He must have staggered back, I think, and he's just rolled and snapped his neck. Can you imagine the power of this thing? It must take tremendous commitment for a crocodile to attack such a large animal. I can imagine the animal's horns lashing out at the crocodile. I can imagine his hooves kicking out, and just the sheer weight of a bull. It amazes me how much commitment and total ferocity must be launched into that attack, but also so powerful mentally, not just physically. I don't think it's a good idea to be too close to the end. All right, come on, get out of here.
basking crocodiles should be approached with caution. They are likely, without warning, to defend their territory with a lightning attack. And no small rivercraft would be a match for their sheer bulk and powerful jaws. The crocodile's very speed and ferocity make it the survivor it is. This is what Ireland had been looking for. The obvious master of this stretch of the ancient river, one in whom all the inbuilt wisdom and skill of his species was, by virtue of his age, most fully developed. Now was the time to bring the filming cage into action, to go down into the water where this beast was king and learn his secrets.
Just cut the motor here, Mike. That's the spot. That's the only deep channel we've seen. We should put the cage in right up close to shore. We can build a ramp out to it so we can get in and out safely.
Well, it's high enough so I can set up the remotes. I can also shoot down on top of you while you're on the cage.
This was going to be a risky business, the outcome unpredictable. Like Ireland, Mark and Michael knew that careful preparation was essential and that every precaution had to be taken. The high ground was important not only for filming, but also to provide some measure of protection if things went wrong.
Sweet. All right, mate, give me another piece of wire. They're right round there. There. Yeah, that's where they bite. And I'll rip it at there. And we need another one at the top.
Hunks of decaying meat are attached to the outside of the cage. These and the human bait inside are expected to be enough to attract the river's guardian. As a final safeguard, David Ireland sets his protective totem, the crocodile god, to watch over the coming encounter. Everything was in place. Everyone was ready. It was all up to Ireland now, to take his place and wait for the crocodile. It surely couldn't be long. As Ireland prepares himself, he is only too aware of the dangerous environment he is entering, where, to the beast in the water, every vibration, every noise says, intruder.
I thought, like sharks, that once I put the bait in the water, that the crocodile would just come straight over. I mean, he could see me, he could smell me, he could smell the bait, and he could even feel the vibrations of me in the water. And yet he wouldn't come. All he was doing was playing with me. When I got into the cage, I was surprised how cold it was. And inside the cage was really claustrophobic. Looking out through the mesh into that green, murky water made me feel apprehensive. And when I climbed out of the cage into 50-degree temperatures, I was getting exhausted very quickly. And the smell of that damn bait, that putrid, horrible bait, the smell was making me feel sick. And that crocodile just wouldn't come. I knew he was out there. He had all the time in the world, and I hadn't. And I was starting to get angry.
With nightfall, it was decided to call it a day. They'd see what tomorrow brought.
It looks like a ton of fish. I don't know why.
Certainly knocks around.
Oh, funny. Oh, damn, look at this. Jeez, look at this. I don't know what, look at that, it's all smashed. What's happening here? All the wires broken, mate. Look at that.
You must have hit it with some force.
Bastards, they ripped the bait up. They've broken all the wire. That whole bottom leg's gone. Why weren't they taken when we're here?
Frustrated by the almost casual contempt with which he and his crew had been treated, David Ireland wanted time to reassess the situation. He decided to take a break and see if he might have better luck elsewhere. Perhaps he might at least gain some field knowledge of crocodiles by filming the smaller and less dangerous freshwater variety, which were known to inhabit the backwater billabongs and swamps of the Kununurra hinterland. Not that caution wasn't necessary. Although these backwaters are normally cut off from the tidal river, flooding can occur during the monsoon season. It has been known for saltwater crocs, who can live in both salt and freshwater environments, to take up residence there. Ireland and his companions know they have to be careful. To encounter unawares some old solitary salty brooding on its expulsion from the river by a younger rival would not be pleasant.
God, there must be thousands of them.
What do you think of chances of seeing a salty here?
Believe me, if there's one salty in this swamp, this is where he'll live. Nowhere else. These bats fall in the water all the time. They're forever falling in the water.
It's down here, isn't it?
Look how thick it is.
Do you think we can actually get in there?
I don't know. You never see him in there. You never see him coming. I think what we should do is, if we work pretty close to the shore and we track up through these deep holes, we might have a chance of picking up a large freshie in one of the deeper holes.
There's a good chance.
I mean, if one's holed up there and he's just sitting there quietly, then, you know, we should be able to move in real slow and get him. But we still have that problem that if there is a saltwater crocodile anywhere in this whole swamp, then this is where he might be. So I think it's a good idea when we're moving along the edge that we stay pretty close together. I mean, if we are together, we've got our lights, we would probably seem more of a threat to the crocodile.
Well, what are you going to do if the big one does come up?
Well, that's not the best scenario, but if I have to, then I'll have to try and kill it.
Sea lions. Ireland suddenly recalled how these beautiful creatures were particularly vulnerable to attack from below by marauding sharks.
I'd seen the shocking wounds inflicted by sharks on sea lions. In spite of their speed and agility, and I knew how much more vulnerable Mark and I were as heavily laden, slow-swimming divers. It was such a spooky place. It was a place where I felt I had lost my control. And no matter how much experience I had, I couldn't use it here. I was really, literally out of my depth.
Michael was not too happy about his brother's intentions. David, although completely at home in the ocean, was in foreign waters here. This was a very different environment to the one he knew so well, with a lot of unknowns and a great many uncertainties. Weed. The divers soon found that not only did it restrict their progress, but it provided the perfect camouflage for the freshies they were looking for.
I felt that I could deal with a large freshwater crocodile, but that underlying threat of a large saltwater crocodile, an animal that hunts large animals and can kill a bull, that concerned me a lot. I felt that if I saw him first, then I could defend myself. But if he came from the side or from underneath me, then I wouldn't have any chance at all.
Mate, I can't film under that canopy. It's just too dark. The light meter just goes right off the air.
Mate, whether he was a freshie or a salty, I can't see him. If you go right over the top of the minister, we're just not winning, are we? We're trying hard, but we're getting nothing.
Not for the want of effort.
I saw that big log sitting there and I thought, geez, here we are, we've finally got one.
Was it a salty?
No, it was a log. I'm rather glad it was a log.
So am I.
All right, come we'll get out. That's enough for one day. Here you are. Hold up. That's not ready.
Ireland was getting nowhere. To produce any worthwhile footage of the animal's behaviour, he had to get a lot closer than he'd managed so far. The shallow mudflats bordering the swamps offered him this opportunity. Here he could challenge the freshwater crocs on their own territory and record their response. Tail cracking. A warning. Keep off. Ireland had seen this before in a very different environment, with a very different creature. The discovery elated him. Small as it was, it showed he was on the right track, that his theories of common links between animal and human aggressive behaviour could well have some validity.
The big problem with these backwater swamps is their isolation from civilization. We're so many miles away from help. Little tiny tin boats out in the middle of nothingness. If one of us had been bitten by a freshwater crocodile, for instance, and was badly wounded, something that we couldn't have coped with first aid, then it would have taken 2 or 3 days to get flying doctor service in to help us, providing that we could get a message out. The radios were very unreliable.
Oh, beautiful. Look at you. You little scallywag. Not very happy about me holding him at all. Look at these web feet on him, Mark. Aren't they beautiful? They're so prehistoric. And yet the skin, it looks rough as hell, but it's not. It's beautiful to touch. Very, very smooth. Little beauty. What do you think of that one, Mark?
Almost cute.
We might let you go, eh? And go.
David Ireland felt that a nighttime dive under the weed canopy back in the swamp might prove more fruitful than the earlier attempt in daylight. He remembered how, in the ocean, his blazing lights had seemed to attract and hypnotize sharks as he studied them.
I think the bright lights tend to mesmerise animals. And they look at the light and not what's behind the light or what's holding the light. I think there is some safety, some real safety using underwater lights in filming dangerous animals. I feel using the underwater lights in the swamp will enable us to get very close to the freshwater crocodiles, something we couldn't do during the day. But I'm aware that it's still a dangerous situation. There are so many creatures in a swamp that move around at night. Tiger snakes and brown snakes, red-bellied black snakes. Those sort of animals, of course, all live in the swamp too. I don't think we'll need this 12 gauge, but I'm not going to go in with that one. What we'll do is work our way over to the bank, and if we're very, very quiet, we'll literally blind them with these lights. Check that light for me.
Just hold that light. That's it.
Yes, sir. I knew that crocodiles are a lot more active at night than they are during the day. But that was a great opportunity for me to get close to them. Well, that's what I believe. Okay, let's start, mate.
Michael didn't share his brother's confidence. He was becoming distinctly uneasy. David's obsession to learn and discover was making him unnecessarily reckless.
Michael was really concerned that an animal out there was going to take his brother away. And the waiting in the boat must have been far harder for him than it was for me. I would rather be in the water doing the diving than waiting in the boat. Diving at night in such a threatening place, when you cast your eyes from left to right of the light pool and looked into just darkness and blackness, and knowing that there were genuinely animals in there that were very dangerous, that was a very hard thing to stomach. I had to continually swallow my fear. No, this is hopeless. Well, I didn't think it'd be this hard.
Mate, it's just impossible.
We can't get anywhere near them, mate. We can't get anywhere near them.
You can see their eyes over there, but they're all on the weeds.
We can't get through this bloody weed. It's just hopeless. I was hoping we could get close to the lights. Okay, anyway. Bloody waste of time.
Once again, the weed-choked swamp had stymied them. It was time to give the cage on the river another go. First, however, they decided to take a look at one other possible location where underwater filming of the saltwater crocodile might be possible. A chain of billabongs on the edge of the ancient Kimberley Plateau, a landscape still redolent of the distant past that the Aborigines called the Dreamtime.
We walked down from a fairly high plateau into this open country that was very, very lush and green, and the surrounding country was so dry and stony.
I'll have a good look. Might be able to find a spot. Promising from here.
Well, I don't know if it's deep enough here. It looks pretty shallow. Just keep your eye for a decent, deeper hole. If we can find a deep hole, we can put the cage in. But I'd be a bit careful around the edge. I mean, you know, if there's salties in here, you want to be a bit careful around the edge.
Yeah, we'll stay back from the edge a bit.
All right, we'll take off, huh? And I'll
Okay.
see you guys in a couple of
See you in a
hours.
couple of hours.
Rightio.
All
Yeah. Okay.
The whole place was just alive with animals. It was such a wonderful place. It was a little Eden right out in the middle of the Kimberley. So it was such a great place to be. I felt very sad that the Aboriginals had been driven out of that part of Australia. Because when they were driven away, the amount of knowledge that went with them. I only had one lifetime to learn about one creature. I wanted to study one creature, and I couldn't even scratch the surface. They knew animals intimately, and compared to their knowledge and what they knew, I felt very, very humble.
I didn't find a suitable spot. It seems to me that most of that lagoon is pretty shallow. It's very weedy, and the deeper holes are very, very dirty. A pretty lagoon, a nice billabong, but it's no good for us. There's just no salties there that I can see. It's just no good for filming.
In low spirits, the three men returned wearily to their cage on the river.
Left up. Left up. Okay.
Mick, can you get that mast for me, mate?
One more attempt would be made to lure the dominant old crocodile they knew was out there into camera range.
I'll drop in and...
Last time, he'd eluded them by coming in the night to take their bait. This time, night or no night, David Island was going to be waiting for him.
When I went back to the cage at night, I felt very, very frustrated because I hadn't achieved what I'd set out to do. I wanted to learn about this animal, and I wanted this large croc to come straight up to me in the cage. I wanted to film what he would do, his body language and his reaction to me in the water with him.
Right, Dave, I'll give you that.
Take that camera down. I'll take it. Yep, you got it? Yep. Wait a minute now. All right, mate. Seal me in.
All right, matey.
See ya.
Okay.
Okay. You go now. Leave me alone. Because the temperatures during the day were so extreme, the meat became totally putrid. And the fatty oil from the meat would slick the surface all throughout the cage. And the smell of that fatty oil was all over the mesh. The maggots would fall off the bait and they're all in the water. And the smell of it was all through my skin and in my hair. It was in the regulator, and even underwater I could still taste it. It was something that I wanted to get away from, but I couldn't. It was such a horrible place to be, and I knew I'd have to be in there for hour after hour.
Like some offering to the demon of the river, some enchained victim, awaiting his dragon, Island escaped into memories of happier times.
My wife and I had spent many years diving some wonderful places. Diving in clean, warm, tropical oceans. With lots of gentle animals. Yeah, I know. We're just wasting our time. I won't come anywhere near the lights. And now we go home. We go back to the camp and they'll rip hell out of that bait. They won't touch it until we're gone. Come on, let's go recharge it up. Try again another night. Right. Watch your foot, mate, and I'll bang it down. I don't know, we've tried every bloody thing.
They're not interested in entering that light. I mean, they're just sitting out there wide and they won't come into the light. And then when we're gone, they come and eat the bait. I just don't know where we can go from here. I don't know what to do now. We've tried everything.
Well, Dave, it seems like everything you've tried to do hasn't worked. The crocodiles have beaten you every time. There's a few Aboriginal tribes up here. They have an elder, an old man. They call him the Crocodileman. And he belongs to a crocodile totem. And he believes, and the tribe believe, that he's a crocodile reincarnated.
Wyndham Meatworks was opened in 1919. Today, it lies empty and abandoned, populated only by the ghosts of the many thousands of cattle slaughtered here. Day after day during the killing season, blood and offal would be swilled from the abattoir's concrete floors and channeled indiscriminately down through pipes into the mangrove creek, where it would stain the slimy mud a rich red colour. This place was known as the blood drain.
When blood came from the old abattoir, there was only one crocodile that was the master. And when he came to the blood drain, the other crocodiles literally got out of the water because he would kill them straight away. This crocodile had not only taken cattle, he not only killed lots of other crocodiles, but it was also legend that he'd eaten people. I was well aware that if this animal turned up, that I would be looking in the face of a creature that was the most awesome, terrible thing that I'd ever seen.
This monster, wise as he had to be in the ways of man, would surely not fail to accept Ireland's challenging invasion of his territory.
At low tide, the spiders would come across the mud and get into the supports of the cage. As the tide rises, then the spiders would go to the top of the cage. The spiders are above my head and all around my face. And I hate spiders.
This time there was no disappointment. With night, they came. Cautiously at first, not willing to enter the pool of light.
When the crocodiles came, I wasn't filled with fear. I was really excited. This was my first chance, after such a long time in the wilderness, to actually record their territorial, aggressive displays against me. I became really concerned when I felt the tide rising higher and higher on my chest. I knew if the tide got too high, that I would drown in a cage. And that 30 yards of open water from the cage to the shore, those crocodiles would not let me survive. I was surprised at the speed that the crocodiles fed. And yet they seemed to come at the cage one at a time. Not like sharks all in a frenzy, but one at a time, like some sort of prearranged pecking order.
Prehistoric jaws feast confidently. Then suddenly they're gone. Silence. Ireland tenses with expectation, half hope, half fear. What has scared them off? He holds his breath. And there he is, over 17 feet of crocodile. A legend, arrogantly come to see who has dared disturb his peace.
When he came up to the mesh, he just stared at me. There was no doubt in my mind that this 1-ton crocodile could easily tear open the cage. It was totally up to him what happened now. When I saw him ignore me and approach the bait, I felt some relief. I knew now his attention was away from me.
The first obstacle had been triumphantly surmounted, but the expedition was not over yet. And it was now time, while Michael returned south, to head for Darwin and the next stage of Ireland's investigation into the ways of the crocodile.
We'd gone back in time with the expedition to the blood trail. We'd recorded dinosaurs, living dinosaurs, and the way they behave in a territorial situation, their body language and their dominance. And this had never been recorded before.
From Mark's point of view, they'd done what they set out to do, filmed crocodile behaviour never recorded before. But to David Ireland, this was only the beginning.
I'd learnt that there's one dominant beast that controls a territory. I wanted to travel through the Northern Territory to Darwin to experiment further with my theories of their dominance and their power.
Even in captivity, crocodiles are extremely dangerous. More than that, however, David Ireland wanted to prove that unlike other animals in captivity, they never lose their ferocity, that they remain totally wild, their spirit unbroken.
The old Aborigine had taught me very well the ancient secret art of the calling. The ability to call the animals right to me, but also to challenge them.
Rogue crocodiles who kill cattle, menace boats, or are suspected of attacking people are trapped from the wild and confined in this lake. Over 100 powerful reptiles living uncomfortably close together, fiercely competitive. This was the perfect environment for Ireland to test further what he had witnessed in the wild. If Ireland's theory was correct, then somewhere out there had to be a master crocodile, the lord of this prison-like lake, to whom all the others eventually gave precedence, a creature of great cunning and awesome power.
You know, mate, I'd like to put the cage right in this bloody pond, right in the middle of the bar. I really do. I want to put the cage right in the middle.
Well, I don't agree with you. What do you hope to achieve?
In the wild, we see only one adult crocodile about every quarter of a mile. So the chances of us filming any territorial fighting or body language between them, I mean, we'll be out there for another 2 years.
In the wild, you had a situation where you only had a few crocodiles. You could monitor the situation, and you had control of the situation. Here, with over 100 crocs,
I know that.
honestly, I think you've got a situation where that cage might be torn to bits.
I want to put the cage in here. I really want to put it in here.
Okay, well, if you really decide that you want to do that, I'll go along with it. But we've got to design a new cage. The other cage we had, that's finished. We've got to design another cage. We've got to make it stronger. And I'll go along with you and we'll try it.
The new cage was a lot stronger than the other one. It was better welded, it was better constructed than the old one. But it was lightweight, it was a lot lighter. Mark was concerned, and I was too, that there was a possibility that the crocodiles could easily pull it over or even drag it into the middle of the lake, into the deep part of the lake. If I get in the cage here, it will surely stimulate the most dominant crocodile of the lake to take over the territory around my cage. And I believe that when he decides to attack, that his commitment will be total. When we paddled out to the cage, I felt a terrible sense of fear. And seeing so many crocodiles on the surface, and knowing that there were so many more underwater,
Ranger keeps a wary eye as other eyes look on with cold reptilian calculation. Unlike man, crocodile is patient and will not commit himself until he has thoroughly assessed a situation. When he has done so, however, if he decides to attack, then that commitment is total. Or so Highland believes.
when the ranger paddled away in that little boat and left me in the cage, I felt terribly isolated and terribly alone. I knew they'd take their time. I knew in spite of their power and their speed and their agility and their enormous strength, I knew they'd be wary and watch and be cautious. Because that's the nature of these predators. just like the blood drain when they came. They fed very quickly. And they snapped at the bait very, very fast. The cage started to become buffeted somewhat. I could feel their legs and their heads and their tails hitting the cage, and I could feel it shaking. And the concern that it might be pulled over or knocked over, of course, was still very much there and very much a concern to me. And then, just like the blood drain, the dominant crocodile decided to attack. He decided that he would take control of the territory around the cage. And he attacked the other crocodiles with tremendous force.
The master crocodile's bait had been specially and securely roped to the cage.
I was going to prove once and for all that the most dominant crocodile would never give up. That he would pull the cage over rather than let go of that bait.
The moment had now come to test this theory. The moment of truth. Was it to be survive or surrender? And if so, who would break first? David Ireland had cut the rope and saved his own life. But, defeated, he was nevertheless still the winner. He had survived and proved his theory correct. He was triumphant. The obsession persists. Ireland knows he is only just beginning to learn about the crocodile, its survival techniques, its oneness with its environment. And in these things alone, this dragon-like creature from our primeval past has much to teach us.
In the land of the dreaming, there's a story of old, of an old man with knowledge of God's ancient creature, a lifetime of secrets that's never been told. His eyes, they are gleaming, knows the danger within. All the dreams of a lifetime stored in his keeping, safe from the ones who destroy what he knows. In the land of the dreaming lives a man of the dreaming. Comes a man from the ocean, comes a man with no fear, wants to learn of the dreaming, to see with his eyes what few men have witnessed and less have survived. He gave up his comfort, he will risk his own life, 'cause his thirst for the knowledge he'll never give up till he knows the